this is all wrong, I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can. Today, I want to thank you once again for your generosity of spirit and joining me. We will probably be moving this program just a little bit to 8:45 in future. I'm still checking that out, but we'll see. Have your say. Which time do you prefer? Eventually, it'll be a whole hour. We're just building up to that, but I'm so busy at the moment getting the other shows organized with the team. So I don't indulge myself too much by doing a whole hour at the moment. Fundamentally, we are expanding into 2 stations quite soon, and that's going to be art and culture, and then news and views, those 2 things, partly because we've got so much content. It's simply a matter of resources and time, but it's really exciting to be I'd like to think, the most developed online TV station in the world now. But that's all thanks to you, because you're watching, so we carry on making the shows. I want to spend today explaining a few things about politics and giving you my review of the Reform UK conference. Why do I do that? Because it's very likely that they're going to be the next government. And so I went up there, went to see the performance of their leader. That's Nigel Farage, who basically had a fairly substantial presence there. Obviously, everybody's very interested in him. And here he is, in fact, in the United States quite recently, when he was giving some evidence to what is the equivalent of a select committee over in the States. He was talking about free speech. So my goal today is to give you my review of this on Thursday this week, if you're watching it live, or if you're watching it in the archive. You'll find this as well. We've got Alan Cook coming on. He's a councillor, the first elected councillor for Reform UK. All the others have been defections to Reform UK in London. But I want to give you my review. Right, first of all, the big picture. It seems to me, if you're not clear on what Reform UK is and what they stand for, it seems to me that what they've managed to do is occupy a vast swathe of the political territory in the United Kingdom. Where did they come from? They came from a set of other parties, UK Independence Party and the Brexit Party, all of which were dedicated to extracting the United Kingdom from the European Union. Nigel Farage arguably has been the most successful politician in recent political history, because he achieved his core objective and left politics, it must be said, in order to pursue a career in a different walk of life, namely broadcasting. But then he decided the job hadn't been done, and he came back. And he came back in some substantial style, in fact. Initially as a bit part player in Reform UK, but then quite obviously as leader. And he made that last minute decision in the run up to the general election, and lo and behold, he got elected to Parliament as a result. Well, you will know that Reform did pretty well in the elections. They only got a handful of seats, but they did get a fistful of votes. In fact, they came third in the popular vote, ahead of the Lib Dems, who got 72 seats. That's an interesting quirk of our political electoral system. You don't hear Lib Dems talking about proportional representation very much now, because they got 72 seats under the old system, while Reform only got about 4 or about 5, I think it was, actually. Now, here's the thing. This is when it gets really interesting. Since then, Reform has roughly doubled its share of the vote. And it's been, I think, ahead in something like 100 different different polls consistently. Everybody accepts that they are currently leading in the polls, which would probably mean, not definitely, but probably mean that this man here would do very badly and come trailing behind Reform in terms of the popular vote if the election was held tomorrow. Yes, Keir Starmer's got a lot of problems, and a lot of people say it's his own fault because he really hasn't got a proper narrative. Whatever the reason, Reform has been doing very well, and it's been standing tall and standing proud to the point where everybody's talking about them. When Reform says something about migration, the Tories tend to say, oh, that was our idea. And Labour tends to say, well, no, we can't do that. But actually, they're all gravitating towards Reform's point of view. That's fairly obvious. So the issue here for Keir Starmer is that they found no way of stopping Reform's success. Now, I went to the conference, and you'll find at that conference, or anybody who's been to it, that there was a professionalism which has massively developed since the last time, with something like 10,000 delegates going to that conference. To give you a sense of perspective, when I was in the Liberal Democrats, the party would be pleased to get 2,000 or 2,500 people going to the conference. They had 10,000 people, 4 times that at the conference. More to the point, it was also quite clear to me that the reality here is that the public and the media and lobbyists are all beginning to treat Nigel Farage as something of an acting prime minister. Heathrow Airport was represented there. Nigel Farage made it very clear that he would take a totally different view to the development of a runway. No ifs, no buts. It would just be built. I personally think we need a runway in Heathrow and Gatwick, actually, and in other extensions in other parts of the country too. So that's the first thing I noticed. There was a real strength of support, as far as I could tell, for the belief, whether you like it or not, that he was going to become the next leader of the country, not just of the party. Then there was the speech. Let's have a look at some of what was said, and this is a sense of how it's been reported and how he delivered it.
We are all ships rising on a turquoise tide, headed ever closer towards winning the next general election. It's been a day of some considerable news. It seems that female politicians are all the rage at the moment. We had our own very positive announcement overnight, of which you will hear more. But the reason that I've moved this speaking time forward is because this government is deep in crisis. Not only have they fallen into deep popularity within just a year of winning the general election, but it's become clear to all of us that it is a cabinet of wholly unqualified people to run our country. They are not fit to govern.
And this is the point. This was the repeating message at the conference, that the current Labour administration isn't fit to govern and that they're not qualified. A couple of words about that. Our research indicates that the current Labour government is the worst qualified, in academic terms, in British political history, certainly recent British political history. David Lammy, who says he went to Oxford Brookes University, not Oxford University, the one with the spires, if you like. And I think it's kind of important we know the difference. I've got a lot of respect for Oxford Brookes University. It used to be a polytechnic, in fact. And I've considered going there myself. So it's a worthy institution. But it's classic Labour to give impression of one thing or another when others true. Angela Rayner, who left school with no qualifications, got to be deputy minister. And I would say that Keir Starmer is woefully inadequate intellectually when he's performing. He does seem to have an anodyne approach. By contrast, the man in the picture there is a self-made man, very wealthy, earned it, I would say, and is quite happy to celebrate it. So on this first point, it seems that Nigel Farage beats Keir Starmer in terms of intellect, in terms of narrative, and in terms of popularity. Let's just listen to a little bit more of this, because this next part's very interesting.
I suppose we're lucky in one way that at least the Chancellor was a senior economist at the Bank of England for 10 years. And that the business secretary is a fully qualified solicitor. And that the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary, until half an hour ago, is an accomplished property developer and speculator.
And that's the issue. That's the fundamental issue for Labour. They have proved themselves to be profoundly accident prone, and that makes it possible for the likes of Nigel Farage to make capital, to make hay out of it. And that's what he did. I won't show you more of that speech. You will easily find all of it online if you want to. But in that opening salvo, what Nigel Farage was pointing out was that Rachel Reeves has been dishonest about her CV. She blames other people, but who gets other people to write their CV for them? They've got, see, she's weeping, she's blubbing in the House of Commons, and whatever her personal problems, it's just not smart to bring them into the workplace when your workplace is actually the House of Commons. But there we go. So we had that little spectacle there. And then he made the point that Angela Rayner, who until recently was the Deputy Prime Minister, had to resign. That's the word about that. A lot of different views on this. Nigel Farage didn't really complain about the fact that she had lots of houses. What he was simply doing was pointing out that she'd resigned. As I've said previously on the programme, I have no issue with her houses, really, and I don't feel strongly about the details of the tax situation. I just don't have time to worry about that. What I think brought her down was her hypocrisy, because she was complaining about other people doing exactly or almost exactly what she herself has done. That's the crime. It's the double standards, calling Tory scum, saying they had their nose in the trough. I had a run-in with her on television one time when she was criticising some other MP for making money outside Parliament. And when I pointed out in her register, this is Angela Rayner's register of interests, that she herself had made benefits, achieved benefits, financial or pecuniary benefits, or benefits of a financial value from outside Parliament, she went crazy. Absolutely crazy, even though it was there in black and white. So what Nigel Farage is able to do is unpick the credibility of the Labour Party thanks to their own decisions. So the first thing I noticed when I was at the conference was the extent of confidence amongst the delegates that they really had got an edge on Labour. Now, this leads to another interesting point, and it's this. They've already smashed the Conservative Party. In 2024, the Lib Dems did gain a lot of seats, but largely because Reform reduced the vote in Conservative seats for Tory candidates by so much that the Lib Dems came up the middle. They slipped through because the Conservative vote was split between Reform and Tory. Now, the Tories have continued, to my surprise, to sink even further in the polls and show no sign of recovering under Kemi Badenoch. So they are in the doldrums. And I had some discussion at the conference with fairly senior people about what they thought would happen to the Tories, and they think the Tories are still in decline. It does seem that the Tories have got a huge problem at the moment. They just don't seem to be able to get off the blocks. We saw Kemi Badenoch trying to make hay of the situation with the departure of Angela Rayner, but it just didn't seem to me very plausible. And others have said the same thing. They've been fairly critical and said, well, actually, this isn't exactly great. This isn't exactly what we want. We actually need to have something more serious and more credible than just poking fun at the beleaguered deputy prime minister. So Kemi Badenoch and her party is stuck in the doldrums. Really, they're just passengers on the British political ship. And that's why it's so interesting to see what's going on in relation to this man, the prime minister. Because having dispatched the Conservatives in large part, all Nigel Farage and Reform need to do is make a similar inroad into the Labour vote. And at that point, there's a very serious prospect of Reform UK getting an overall majority in the next general election, which I still think will be in 2029. So my next observation about the conference is everybody seems to understand that. The Reform operation seems to get that they have to win over the Labour vote. If you add that together, and if the current trajectory in terms of voting continues, Reform could be on 40% pretty soon. And this leads to my third observation. What's going to stop them? Is it possible that some sort of a rejigging of the Labour cabinet, this has had to happen because of Angela Rayner's departure, will breathe new life into Starmer's massively beleaguered administration? Is it possible that Kemi Badenoch will turn things around? I'm not sure that either of those things can happen. Badenoch doesn't have what it takes, in my opinion. I was quite optimistic about her at one point, but she simply hasn't delivered. And Keir Starmer is clearly not competent to do his job. On top of that, he's now promoted David Lammy to the position of Deputy Prime Minister. And let's remember, David Lammy is somebody who is a little short of a laughing stock. Then you add to that the problem that Emmanuel Macron, to whom Keir Starmer has essentially pinned his own reputation, is in trouble. And you can see that there's nothing really working for Starmer. Macron could even lose his job. And Macron is arguably Starmer's biggest ally. If anything, it's a trifle embarrassing to see the extent to which those two have been larking about, because Macron's just lost his prime minister. It could be that he can't even stop the rot when it comes to the position with all of these endless meetings that he's had for no apparent benefit with Macron and others about Ukraine. So not only does Starmer have problems in this country, but he's also got problems with his international relations. Once again, Farage knows all this. Nigel Farage now is in a great position. He's very close to Donald Trump, and Starmer clearly is not. He's got good allies in the resurgent right, the AfD in Germany, other parties in the Netherlands and in France. And he seems to be popular with the public. He's got some of the same quality, maybe you could call it star quality, as Boris Johnson had as leader of the Conservatives. So it's not obvious to me at all that as long as Keir Starmer is running the Labour Party, he can do anything to stop the rot. Which leads me to my last observation. I would put it to you, the reason that the Labour Party is doing so badly is because it's just mismanaged. Its crew at the top isn't good enough for the job. It's not fit for purpose. The same goes for the Conservatives. The Lib Dems, I think, have more or less abandoned any prospect of being taken seriously. Though I like Ed Davey as a person, he just doesn't seem to be cutting it as a credible statesman, to the point of even stating he's not going to go to the state banquet being held by the King for Donald Trump. Writing yourself out of the script like that is utter foolishness, and won't ingratiate himself with anybody who, like me, believes that it's a good thing and that Donald Trump's doing a good job. As such, I think the future of reform is in reform's hands. I would say that Nigel Farage has been candid in admitting that internally they're just not ready for government. I made that point too. And when activists were saying, oh, we've got to have the election as soon as possible, I was going, I don't think that's right. I don't think that you can have an election right now with the expectation of reform being ready for government. They're getting that experience at local government level to an extent, and they're now recruiting the likes of Nadine Dorries to inform them of what government really means, but it's still not enough. So I think they need the whole 4 years till 2029 to be ready. But the reality, the inescapable likelihood is the man on the screen will be our next Prime Minister. A few pieces of advice, I suppose, I would give to Reform UK. First of all, get training. Organise internally so that the candidates are ready to win and the winners are ready to rule, to govern, to serve, actually is the word I prefer to use. And the other thing the party needs to do is make sure that its internal narrative remains consistent. So far, that's happened. It's been my observation as a former member of parliament of 13 years standing, that when governments get into power, almost from the moment they get in, the clock starts ticking in a corrosive way. Somehow, power makes these parties rust from the inside out. And the stronger your narrative, the slower that rusting process takes place. The reason we've got so many problems with Labour is they don't really stand for anything. They're in trouble with their unions. London, at time of broadcast, is at a standstill because the underground drivers are once again on strike. Under a Labour government. I saw the impotent mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, moaning about it, but he's in the same party as pretty much all of the drivers, as far as I know. So there's a lack of narrative, and that's why it's fallen apart so fast for Labour. What Nigel Farage has to do is make sure that the narrative is robust enough to survive at least one term of government, and ideally 3, really. If you want to make a really big difference, 3 would be the length of time it would take to undo the kind of damage that Farage claims the old parties have done to this country. And then just one other thing, be organised. Reform's so much more organised now than it was 12 months ago, but you win seats by being organised. A guest who I have on fairly often, councillor now Alan Cook, won the first elected council seat in London, for Reform by being organised, and it proved that when they are organised, they can beat Tories and save seats. They went from 0, no votes because they didn't have a candidate, to 34% in a single go in a short 4-week campaign. Putting all that together, I think that we're in a situation of great flux. We're in a position now where the government is unable to unground itself. As long as Starmer's in charge, it won't change. Wes Streeting, who's obviously fishing for the job of leader, and I think probably Angela Rayner will probably put a name in for that job as well as leader of Labour. They're just waiting now until either he gets into such a mess, perhaps because of a legal case or something else, that he has to resign, or when he screws up the next general election. So all eyes are on Farage. He himself knows that means he's under enormous pressure to deliver. I sincerely hope that we do see a change. And the reason I say that is because I cannot see any reason to be cheerful under the current Labour administration. But more than anything, if Farage carries out even half of the promises he's made on migration, so that if you come in illegally, you get no truck, you get no chance to apply for asylum under normal circumstances because you broke the law when you arrived. If he keeps that promise, if he abolishes net zero, which is that ridiculous concept of there being a climate crisis, scientifically illiterate to think that there is, and if he develops a foreign policy and a foreign approach which is far more credible than the nonsense we've been exposed to by David Lammy while he was Foreign Secretary, then he could actually put Britain back on the stage. But for the next 4 years, we have to keep calm and carry on. As such, I'll make a prediction. I predict that Reform will get the largest number of votes again in the local elections next year. And if they do, I predict that they'll get the largest number of votes in the 2029 general election. I think that my other prediction is that that's the date for the election. And I think that the only thing that will prevent Farage from becoming Prime Minister is a coalition of the witless, to misquote Keir Starmer, a coalition of old parties so hell-bent on preventing a Reform UK government that if they can find any means, they'll try to prevent Farage getting into Downing Street. We've seen that in other parts of the world before. And to an extent, that's what happened in France, and Marine Le Pen did very well. But the other parties conspired just by gaming the electoral system to stop her doing better or well enough to become the government. You have your so all in all, that's what I think the game plan is for Reform. I think they'll achieve it, but it's all in their hands. One thing I'm sure of is two people who cannot affect the destiny of Reform are Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch. They've played their cards and they've lost. So now we can see the finishing line for Reform. The challenge for Farage is to run the race and make it to the tape. You can have your say as well. Lots more coming up today, incidentally. And if you're looking at this on the archive, you'll be able to tell how much of what I said is right. The great thing about the internet, maybe the terrible thing is, this program and all of our programs will be there in perpetuity, so that the comments we're making now in 2025 can be compared with the reality as it is then in 2029. You could even think of these programs as a kind of time machine where we commit ourselves to our predictions. And I hope if our predictions are accurate, you'll stay with Unprecedented TV. Thanks very much for watching. We've got some other great shows on today and every day. This is the home of free speech and free thought, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm Lembit Öpik. This is Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. Have a great day.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,